Hey, good morning. Can I get Brandon and Ricardo to join me on the stage, please?
Morning, Kirk.
Hey, how are you, Brandon?
Doing well.
All right. Hey, Ricardo, you're on mute.
Okay, now it's working. Hi, Brandon. Hi, Kirk. Good morning.
Hey, good morning.
Morning, Ricardo.
All right. So before we begin here, I'm going to tell a story about Brandon. So more than 5 years ago, he convinced my team that we needed to buy a 3D sand printer, believe it or not. And so we went and to a very cold visit to the University of Northern Iowa. And I think we had the rare wintertime tornado warning on that visit, which was very, very interesting. So anyway, without further ado, please begin your presentation.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Really appreciate the response of all the people that have signed up. That are with us. It looks like we have over 35 people in attendance this morning. As well as this will be recorded and sent out. For those that had other meetings and vacations, etc. So it's been this journey, like as Kirk mentioned, has been very long and very exciting. The people I've gotten to work with. Just briefly at the table. Working with George Maska at Caterpillar, on one of the largest programs to date. It was one of our first. It was having success and growing. The network of people and the companies that I've been able to work with on this journey has really been phenomenal. This morning I'm joined by Ricardo Toledo. I met Ricardo probably over probably been 7 or 8 years. Ricardo, since we've met. Down in Brazil, and it's just really been great working with you and everybody down in Brazil, all the foundries that have joined. So, so Brandon, I'm the additive manufacturing director at Hometown Products, and I'm blessed to work with a great team of people that have really taken this journey with us. Our team members, really diving in as a pattern shop, that's been around for over 60 years now. This technology has really been great. And Ricardo, I'm going to let you introduce yourself, and what you've been doing. Let our guests and colleagues here, if they don't know you, get a chance to know you. So by all means, go ahead.
Okay. First of all, thank you, Brandon and Hampton family, for this great opportunity to talk with you guys and our audience. Thank you very much, and I'm honored to be part of this very interesting project you are leading. So thank you everybody to attend to this nice event, and hope to present very good and valuable information about additive manufacturing, 3D printing business, considering my experience here in Brazil and South America with the technology and the challenges we have had to introduce the technology and to have the adoption for the companies here. So hope you enjoy the presentation. So I have a background working on a foundry, about 25 years experience, mainly with consumables like binders, ceramic filters, coatings, sand, for shell molding process. So producing binders here in Brazil in partnership with companies from Italy, China, and 7 years ago, looking for some innovation in this market, try to bring something new. I found the additive manufacturing applied to the foundry business. Say, wow, this is the good things I have ever had in the 20 years working in this business. So I made contact, first of all, with X1. I had the opportunity to work with this company for about 7 years until August last year, but still with good relationship, also talking with other OEMs, with other process that could be applied to the foundry industry. And right now I'm working also in a project to start a service center for 3D sand printing in Brazil. It's a huge challenge we have in front of us to move forward with that. and hope to have some good news in the near future about that. Thank you very much. So please enjoy the show.
All right, Ricardo, why don't you talk a little bit about the sectors, the business sectors, for those that aren't as familiar with the Brazilian foundry market. Why don't you talk a little bit about the slide here that you had sent over to me about the market?
Yeah, this is how the sales for foundry industry are distributed. It's from 2018, but it's not changed so much in the past 2 years. So the biggest sector for the casting products is still the automotive, with almost 60% of the share. So after that, we have the other like infrastructure, the other things like steel industry, mining, infrastructure, the sugar industry, machinery, rail, but mainly the biggest one with almost 60% still the automotive industry. So that's why it makes sense the adoption of the additive manufacturing, because the automotive industry, have very huge demand for parts that becomes more and more complex. So that's why I think and I believe that additive manufacturing it's a brilliant tool for reaching this challenge that the automotive industry have for develop new products, focusing on reducing weight, reducing lead time for prototyping, and also thinking about production, and also thinking on environmental issues, so reducing emissions and scrap and waste.
Yep. Yeah, and we've seen, all of those, with additive manufacturing, here, in the U.S. and obviously around the world. So, talk a little bit about, the maturity, of additive manufacturing in Brazil, where you feel, it falls, and, what do you see, in the near future, given what you had just mentioned in your introduction, you can address that by using additive manufacturing.
Yes, I like very much this chat because this is we call it the fusion innovation chat. It's from maybe 60s. It's a very old chat, this one, but it's pretty interesting because we can see the maturity level for new products and innovations. So I think from my perspective and looking for Brazil scenario and South America, we're still a little bit in this early majority for adoption for the technology, because talking about the automotive as a good example, our industry here is not really developing new products. It also come from abroad, from the OEMs headquarters, almost to develop it, and then we just need to produce the casting parts for the automotive industry. We have almost all the OEMs in Brazil right now. Unfortunately, Ford is leaving after 100 years as part of the strategy, but we see that the main focus for the casting foundries here in Brazil is oriented into production, as we have just a few product developments by each OEMs that will not be enough to justify and to have a ROI for investing in a machine, in a big machine like a 3D sand printer. So based on that, the business model that works in Brazil should be services.
Okay.
So for service, we have a huge demand for attend all these foundries and OEMs that have presence in Brazil.
And that service you feel will probably be targeted towards prototypes at the beginning?
Almost for prototypes in the beginning. Yeah, sure. But also we have some kind of customers that need for production already.
Okay.
So, but almost for prototyping because as they don't have enough volume itself for have their own machine for service, for sure it will be very good for them. So working as additive manufacturing as a service business, this is the concept behind our idea.
Okay. And based on the chart that you sent over, it looks like, one of the biggest drivers is to get that reduced time to market. Is that correct?
Yeah.
What you're seeing?
Yes. This is a very good one. I received from Vogel Communications. It was a survey with more than 500 people from different industries and different level. So engineers, people from the production area. So more than 500 people responded to the survey. So reduced time to market is still one of the main reasons for the adoption for the technology, and optimization of product features, reducing weight, topology optimization, some changes on the design. So becomes also a second preference. So it's a multiple choices survey. And also you can see the acceleration of product production times and cost reduction. It's interesting because first of all, you think that cost reduction should be the most important one, but the reduced time to market is still the most important. And doing the same research here, talking with some founders and engineers here, I felt in the beginning that it's really quite similar, the results I'm receiving from the Brazilian engineers and companies here I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's really good. So it seems like you've done a great job of talking to foundries. What would you say, how many foundries, are in Brazil are using this technology? I know it sounds like you don't have a service center, but I know, ourselves, we've shipped to multiple foundries in Brazil. You being in Brazil and visiting and, inquiring these foundries, how many foundries would you say, or what percentage of foundries would you say have at least used digital manufacturing, 3D sand printing specifically?
Not too much, Brandon. Of course, there is a barrier for the costs. So to import this kind of service from abroad, from you, for example, in Hampton, there is a risk for damage. And also the cost, considering the freight, insurance, and also the import duties in taxes and other things. So to produce cores in Brazil in a traditional way is not too much expensive, even if you consider in the tooling. So that's why we are insisting in this idea to have the service center here in Brazil to supply those foundries with prototyping or even production for small series or single parts. So just a few of the big foundries that have a worldwide presence, like TP, Steel, Romy, and other ones like that.
Yep.
It's experimenting the technology.
And would you say most of that, the introduction of the 3D sand printing, has it come from the United States?
United States, Germany, and other service providers around the world, like Thailand, sometimes from China.
Okay.
But basically, they are trying to have the first contact with the technology, importing the services from abroad.
Okay, no, it's really good. As some people on the call know, Humptown, this is a photo of our current, 3D sand printing facility. We started, a couple years ago with just one printer, through a grant with the local Youngstown State University, American Makes. journey 7 years ago, with Jerry Thiel and, the team out at the University of Northern Iowa. So, it's really interesting, Ricardo, to hear, that your story is very similar, to what we've seen, in the United States. Places start with one printer, and then, based on, some prototyping or some new product introduction, they will use 3D sand printing, and then, next thing we're moving right along into full-on, production jobs. And, it's really exciting to hear that, that you've had the introduction, through companies like ours and, from other, around the world, China and Germany. So, and that you're embracing, that technology, and you're ready to take that next step. On the graph here, the time to market, as you mentioned, for new product, everything is going to have to start with, the casting requirement, developing that 3D CAD model. If you decide to run simulation, modeling once you have the gating, but from there, you're going to skip, a lot of these steps. I don't know. Do you have a feel for the foundry industry in Brazil? What the typical lead time is for manufacture of pattern and core box? Do all that. Do you have a rough lead time?
When you talk about the automotive, and for example, talking with complex parts like the water jackets, it's take more time. 3 to 5 months, depending on the complexity and everything else. But for the other kind of castings, for example, we have a huge market for agricultural machinery. So this one, less than a month or even a month and a half, it's enough for them to have the patterns and tooling to starting some prototyping. So the main problem right now for these companies, they are working in full capacity production, and they have to stop sometimes the production to introduce a new prototyping for casting. So they have some disruption in the production, and this is a big issue for them. So it's time they spending to produce for developing new products. And that's why also we are thinking about to have prototype castings. Not only the idea is to have the entire services from simulation, 3D printing, sometimes trying to help with the design for additive manufacturing. That's something very important for the adoption of the technology, to get the real benefit of the technology. So things like that we are trying to help companies here to looking at.
Well, and if you can, reduce the steps, print, 3D print even just one core, of a package or multiple, that's what we really like to see is, design validation, because, maybe you want to adjust your gating, your shrink, rate if it's a very large part, and that's what we've seen a lot here in the U.S. We'll print, a complete mold package, we'll pour that casting, verify, the dimensions of the casting, and we can do multiple iterations, if needed. And then, after you've done that, which only takes a few weeks, then you can go to your hard cut tooling. That's a huge benefit, of this technology is, if you a lag time from getting tooling, and in worst case scenario, the tooling comes in, and if it's wrong, and then you have to send it back out and make all the adjustments. So we see a huge opportunity, for almost, design validation, almost every casting, could be 3D printed for it, take dimensions, make sure everything does exactly what you expect, and then, go into cutting. So I think that, especially if you don't have any capacity at the foundry, you don't want to do, a lot of back and forth with tooling on and off machines. You want to be able to cast it and get your parts. Talking about, production jobs, this brings up a very interesting, point of view. You have a lot of highly complex production jobs in Brazil, and as you mentioned, you're in, basically full capacity. So, have you seen the opportunity for all cores like I have on the screen here? This was 7 or 8 different cores that were blown, assembled. This was where we were able to just print, one solid, monolithic core and still use all the production, equipment and molding lines at the foundry, but just place the core. You seen any applications similar to this in Brazil?
Yeah, sure. Yes, a lot of them. Yeah. It's yeah, as I told you before, to teach the customer also to explore the benefits of the technology. It's not just to suite the process. You need to think about how you can design and develop your product, think in the which way you use to produce them. So through additive manufacturing, applying the concepts for designing for additive manufacturing, focusing on reducing weight and improving quality, topology optimization, generative design. So exploring these features of the technology, you can, reach and applying things like that to improve your quality and product life cycle, anything else. Yeah.
Right, and you actually can reduce assembly and glue and stacking, and in your core room, you can actually open up some capacity. And I understand you have to start doing the 3D printing services to get that introduced, but then after it's introduced and it works, that's when you're going to start seeing more point of view printers actually being placed in the foundries. That's what we've seen.
Yes.
When you can take all this core make and all this assembly time on the bench with gauge and glue, and on the right you have a single sand. It increases the accuracy. Just so many benefits. But I agree. If you don't have the ability to do these tests and trials, at a cost or a price point that's reasonable, it's a huge barrier. Because you never have an opportunity to try this, in your factory.
Yeah, I think to build a cost model and during your process to understand the ROI for your project, it's important just that you consider all these steps and benefits from the technology. Right.
Yep.
Good.
So how could we work together until you have your service center running and you have sand printers available? We need to start thinking, how can we help the market by by consolidating shipments? If there's foundries that want to try 3D printing, can we consolidate all of those into a container and then ship container multiple foundries? That I think that was a really good opportunity for us to work together and to help getting this technology into the market.
Sure, I think this is a very, very good way. Try to consolidate shipments, so bring more customers together to explore your services in Hampton. I know you have good experience in quality. We received some cores. Some customers here in Brazil received cores printed in Hampton with very, very smooth surface finishing, very good sand quality. This is another issue that we are developing in Brazil. Try to find out a very good sand to be used on the machine.
Right.
And I think this is fantastic. To try to consolidate multiple customers with different projects working together to print their own demand and ship together to optimize the shipment and the costs related to that.
Well, and you bring
it's a good alternative.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point. A lot of foundries around the world buy sand from the United States. Down in Mexico. I'm not sure about South America and Brazil, but if foundries are buying sand from the U.S. Anyway, we could do some of the value add, put the sand into the shape of the core, and ship them down ready to be used.
Yeah, it's a good point because the sand in Brazil, it's very cheaper. So comparing with the price of the sand in dollar in the United States or even in Europe, becomes pretty much expensive
Yeah.
to import the sand. So the cost per core becomes, for prototyping, maybe
Yep.
it could be in some cases okay.
Yeah, the
But,
production definitely gonna have to look at that.
mhm.
When 3D sand printing, came out in the United States, the sand was a special screen. It was very expensive, but we worked, as a community, working with universities like University
Mhm.
of Iowa and with sand suppliers and resin suppliers, and we do realize we have to keep driving those costs down because the castings are very competitive, and it's not a large margin industry, so we have to be sensitive to that. And I agree. I understand, that would be a hurdle in Brazil as well as the United States.
Sure.
Obviously, we can. One thing, we got to have the benefits, from market. And we talked about that, with your survey. That was a very big driver for your technology. Just a couple other pictures while we're finishing up talking here. Obviously, you don't have to use additive manufacturing. It's not all or nothing. You can use a hybrid approach. Use.
Mhm.
And I think you'll see that as you're developing out your market in Brazil. You don't have to have all or nothing. You can use just one 3D printed core if you have a design change.
Mhm.
Sample it before changing tooling. So. But, Ricardo, as we're wrapping up here, what are some ways that you can help integrate this technology? How can our listeners reach out to you? Obviously, if they want to email us, we can put in contact. But what are some of the things that you can do to help any of the OEMs or people that need to make castings in Brazil? Because they're an OEM and there's a high import duty and
Mhm.
working with foundries in Brazil. Maybe explain a little bit about how you can help customers.
Sure. I know, as I told you in the beginning on my introduction, I have more than 25 years experience working as a found supplier, mainly in this area, supplying sand, supplying binders, supplying ceramic filters, coatings. So working together with the people who produce the cores and molds for the casting. So I have good knowledge. Comes from my father that have more than 4 years working. Now he's retired, but also working in this market for many years. You had the opportunity to meet with him
I was gonna say
7 years,
I bet he's
7 years ago.
working. Even though he's retired, I'm sure he's still working a little bit, helping you and helping other foundry members.
Yeah, he's living in the beach right now.
Good for him.
Yeah, good for him. So that's why my experience came from. So from the experience of my father working with him and 25 years working in this market. So I know almost all the foundries here. And of course, if you have customers that need to produce some parts in Brazil, I can help them to find the best foundry for different kind of alloys and process. Also, with some experience using 3D printed cores and molds. So,
and obviously,
yeah, that's
with that, we can work together and become a total solution.
yeah.
Working with you and producing the cores and molds, and then obviously once you get up and running in Brazil,
Yes.
we'll have that to offer. So that's
Yeah.
Well, once again, thank you so much, Ricardo. We're going to wrap up here around 15, and we're going to go back out and we're going to do some Q&A. Just a little plug. We're going to be doing a series, on this, and up next we're going to talk with the Indian foundry market, and
Great.
and I are going to have a discussion. Ricardo, hopefully you can join us and listen in. Very exciting to see what's going on globally,
Sure.
around the world with this technology. I think the more we learn together and push this further, I really feel that it's going to, get manufacturing at the point of need. There's so many castings, to be made in the United States, but that same casting, for the same OEM may need to be made, around the world, and 3D printing is really going to help, push that. So just really appreciate everybody, joining in on this. We're going to go back out now. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I think Kirk is going to probably kick us back out to the tables. But first, before we do that, I want to see if we have any Q&A.
Yeah, there's 2 questions, Brandon, that got some upvotes. I sent you privately.
All right, I'm looking at those now. From Kirk. Okay. All right. So this is from Tom Pruka. Tom, thanks for being here. Since a good portion of the Brazilian automotive castings are focused on powertrain, like crankshaft, blocks, et cetera, how does the shift away from the ICE affect the foundries? So obviously, we're seeing a lot of movement here in the U.S. on electrified vehicles. So as we get away from the internal combustion engine, how do you think that's going to affect the foundries? Obviously, you said they're running at full capacity right now. Can you talk a little bit about that, Ricardo?
Yes. Past week, I have a good discussion talking about this. The electrification. This mindset change for electrification, electrical vehicles, and also this mobility. So a week ago, Ford made an announcement here in Brazil that's leaving the automotive production in Brazil. This is part of the mobility strategy. And after that, 100 years producing cars in Brazil, now they're planning to leave. It's bad news, but we understand that's part of the strategy of the company. And we are discussing about the impacts because others should have same moves. I think we will never see the automotive production in the same levels that we saw 10 years, 5 years ago. So there's a completely shifting to this new way of mobility, and also considering the electrical vehicles that it will need less castings and also different alloys like aluminum and magnesium. So we are in a good discussion here in Brazil because all the foundries are pretty much, worried about, and they need to move fast. So I like the ACE ex-CEO from GE, Mr. Jack Welch, that say you need to change before you need. So that's why we are talking about that here a lot in Brazil. Yeah.
Oh, very good. Yeah, it's definitely gonna. There's change, but we just have to be ready for that. And like you said, maybe the technology, but you also use the experience that you have in one alloy, and and change maybe different alloys or different types of castings. A couple other questions here, real quick. Looks like Jose asked, what type of sand can be used for the 3D printer? Ceramic, carbo, silica, other alternatives? Absolutely, Jose. We definitely right now are printing with a round grain silica. That's our workhorse. Do some printing ceramic. We can print either the carbo. We've also found that the Itochu Cerabeads work really, really well, very consistent. So we use that. We also have some customers that want to use, black iron oxide, for steel casting regularly, as well as like a zircon blend. Typically, with the price of zircon and the density, we don't like to go 100%, but we found some really good blends, even up to 50 silica and zircon that work well for water jackets and things like that. Other quick ones. What are the printing time, for example, on a 4-cylinder engine block? So the printers, as you saw in that one photo, they have a build envelope. So you would not just print one cylinder block. You'd probably put, on a 4-cylinder engine block that size, I would assume you could probably get 8 to 10 packages, and that would print in about 18 hours. So, but as you saw, you put 4, 5, 8, 10 printers in. We're not talking full scale F-150. EcoBoost production, but there's a lot of high performance, a lot of applications that we've quoted very high. We're doing alpha runs. We've done all the way up to a 6,000 piece gamma run for an automotive company where they had just one core out of the package. It was very complex. So we do understand, that you might not want to do the whole package in production, but maybe the water jackets or maybe the ports, maybe you consolidate those and maybe you print, a couple hundred sets of water jacket and ports a day.
All right, I think that's probably it.
Yeah, we're running out of time here. Thanks so much, everybody, for joining. For myself, looking forward to talking to Ricardo more on projects, with hopefully some of you that have attended, and we're to help any way we can. So thank you so much.